Hello and welcome to another video. So this is a normal ChatGPT. You're only interacting it through typing and reading, right? Now today I'm going to try and make my own version using ChatGPT APIs to make a chatbot that will be able to receive a voice input through microphone and it will read out the response to you. Now to do that, we need a few things. I've written them down. So we will be using roughly three functions. There's a function for the text to speech, and then there's the other one for speech recognition, the one to detect your voice from the microphone and then transform it to text before passing it to ChatGPT. And then there's the function for passing your input to ChatGPT and getting the feedback. Yeah, those three functions. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be a pro and write the entire code by myself. I'll use the available ChatGPT to help me out. So the first query, we will have ChatGPT generate a function for text to speech, right? Using Python. So I'm going to copy this sentence over here and go over to ChatGPT. Then I will have it generate the code for me. It's using GTTS and play sound. These are all Python libraries. I'll stop and then copy it for now. I'll go to text editor and I'll paste it over here. Then let's get the second one. We need a function for speech recognition, as in the one to take your voice and transform it to text. Then I'll go back to ChatGPT and then have it generate the code. It's using the Google speech recognition APIs, so should work. Should be easy to recognize the speech to text. And it's generated. I'll copy the code and again paste it over here. Then we have to generate the third function, the function for passing your query input to ChatGPT and get the response. So I'll copy that, pass it to ChatGPT, and I'll have it regenerate the code for me. I'll copy it and then go to my file over here and paste it. Let's paste it a little bit down to separate from the others. So, let's save the file as a Python file. I'll call it chat.py. Right now, the process of editing the code to fit the desired look will take some time. So see you when I'm done editing this code. After countless hours of editing, here's the final code. We have the imported libraries, speech recognition, GTTS, play sound. I also have rent int and OpenAI and OS. Now for the OpenAI key, I'll get this one from the OpenAI website. Then I've declared a few variables, one for context to keep the conversation going and remember previous context and so forth. Then a variable for the file name of the mp3. It's the mp3 file will be used to play out the sound. GTTS converts text to a mp3 and then you play it out. As for the functions, they text to speech function I've edited a little bit. I've added generate random names for the mp3 file. In short, this is how you pass it the text and then it's able to make an mp3. Then it saves the file, passes it to play sounds to play the sound, and that's how you hear the feedback. As for the speech recognition function, I've modified it a little bit. Once it receives the audio, it recognizes, and in case it's unable to recognize what you just said, it should be able to return an error, and not have to pass an empty query to ChatGPT. Then for the part of querying ChatGPT to get response, we've introduced a global variable for context. The one I've declared above is for context. So it checks first if there's a previous conversation, in this case, which is the context. So if there's context, it combines the context with the query you just input, and that becomes the prompt for the next query. Now, if there's no previous conversation or context for that matter, your input will be passed directly to ChatGPT as the prompt. Now, the feedback, whatever we get from ChatGPT now, will then be assigned as the next context, right? If it's the first query. Now, if we want to remember like 2 or 3 queries previously, or an entire conversation for that matter, we need to combine the previous available context plus whatever you get feedback from ChatGPT, you add it up. So at the end of like 5 queries, we should be able to have all the information for the feedback from ChatGPT. All that conversation will be combined together as context. So it will be able to summarize, for instance, after conversation, it can summarize the entire conversation in a few words. Then I've introduced another variable called yes no. It's just a simple variable intended to help in case you want to stop a conversation. And with that, there's this new function called stop conversation, which essentially, after every query and feedback is read to you, the stop conversation function will be called to ask you whether you want to proceed with another query or not. If you type yes, you can continue and speak. If not, it will stop. And then there is the main execution part, where the execution starts from. I mean, the main, for first we check whether your yes no variable, whether you've accepted to continue the conversation or not. For purposes of changing topic, I've decided to pick that feedback from the speech recognition function and check if you said the word new topic. So it should be able to clear the context and start a new conversation afresh. If everything else is fine, there's no error, you did not say you want a new topic, then your query is passed to ChatGPT. It sends a feedback, and then we pass that on to the speak function, which will speak out loud the response from ChatGPT. So if ChatGPT does not respond, or in case you pass your query to ChatGPT and there's interference with the internet or anything like that, all that exception will be caught in here, and it will say there's no response from ChatGPT or OpenAI. Then after that, we are calling the stop conversation function. The system will proceed again to clear the mp3 file. Yeah, and that's essentially all the code. For the next phase, we'll need to set up Python for purposes of running, and for this one we are going to need Python 3.8 is a minimum requirement for this. And then we are going to use a virtual environment, so in case we don't want to interfere with the Python in your system, so we'll install Python 3.8. The commands, they will be available up here. Now I already have Python 3.8 installed, so I'm going to make a virtual environment. To make the virtual environment, I'm going to open the file manager, and inside the home directory I'm going to create a folder. I'll call it bot, B-O-T, right? Then inside that bolt folder, I'll copy my Python file which is named chat. So I'll move my Python file inside that file folder. Then I'll open the console in here. Then inside here I'll create a Python environment, Python 3.8 -m, then virtual environment venv, then I'll call it let's call it chat. Okay, let's call it chat. Let it create. Once it is done, we need to first let's activate the virtual environment. So I will say source chat /bin/activate. Then I'll check Python. I'm not sure if that's how it's done, but yeah, 3.8.16. Great. Now let's see if our file is here, ls full list, and our Python file is right here. Great. But we can't run it already because still most of the libraries are not installed. So first we need to install the necessary libraries required to run this Python file. So first we need to install gtts, and we are going to use pip. So it's pip install gtts. Give it time to install. PyAudio pip install PyAudio pip install speech recognition. It's play sound. Pip install play sound. So small caps, yeah, great. Pip install open AI. Already satisfied. There's one more library we need to install. It's called pygo object. So I'll go pip install pygo object. It's required by play sound. It's about time to test it, but before we do that, remember we did not get the OpenAI key, so we need to go to beta.openai.com. So I'm going to go to beta.openai. Remember to sign in. It's free, in case you're wondering. So after that, you go to personal, then view APIs, and then inside here you create a new secret key. And we are back. I've just added my OpenAI key. Let's test it out. We're already in the virtual environment. It's already active, and our file is chat.py. So I'll go python chat.py. Where is North Korea?
North Korea is located in East Asia.
And now I decide to continue. I'll type, why. How big is South Korea?
South Korea has an area of 100,210 square kilometers, 38,691 square miles.
Then I'll try something else. Who was the first chairman of China?
The first chairman of the People's Republic of China was Mao Zedong.
On which hemisphere is Argentina and Brazil?
Argentina and Brazil are located in the southern hemisphere.
And I'll test the context now. Of the two countries, which one is closest to Antarctica?
The closest country to Antarctica is Argentina.
How far is Canada from the North Pole?
Canada is approximately 2,400 kilometers, 1,491 miles, from the North Pole.
Now, one final thing. Actually, the second final. List all the countries we just discussed.
The countries we just discussed are North Korea, South Korea, China, Argentina, Brazil, and Canada.
Now, as you can see, it's able to keep up with the context. It can remember North Korea from the first query and all the way to the last one, which is Canada. So in terms of context, I'll say it's quite good. Now, summarize our entire conversation in a few words.
We discussed the locations of North Korea, South Korea, China, Argentina, Brazil, and Canada.
Now, let's try to see if we can change topic. New topic. Alright. Who is the current president of United States?
The current president of the United States is Joe Biden.
Who is Vladimir Putin?
Vladimir Putin is the president of Russia.
After changing the topic, it should forget the previous conversation and concentrate on the current one. So let's see. I will ask it, what can you remember from our conversation so far?
So far we have discussed the current presidents of the United States and Russia.
Perfect. Now, as you can see, the previous conversation is entirely gone. So every time you want to start a new conversation, just say new topic, and then you can proceed from there. It has achieved several things. So for the achievements, I would say we've managed to retain context. We've been able to change topic, and then we can stop the conversation at any point, and then we are able to input to send input through voice, through microphone, and then we also are able to get the feedback through voice. So those are the 5 achievements. In terms of possible improvements that can be done, I would say a text to speech mechanism that will be a little bit faster in terms of getting the feedback from ChatGPT and reading it out loud. The current one is converting that speech to MP3 and then having to read it out loud again, which can take a bit of while. Then the second possibility, I would say having a faster internet can really help you with the response time. And then we might also need a graphical user interface. You can play around with the code and see what you can come up with. Maybe you can get a better graphical interface. I would love to see it. Yeah, so a graphical interface for PC and probably an Android app, that would be great actually. Then if we can find a way to give it access to the internet, then we can improve on the context retention without exhausting our maximum token. And finally, the ability to use multiple languages. I have noticed that ChatGPT can understand multiple languages. You can input any kind of language and it will understand. As for the speech recognition, the Google speech recognition is able to support many languages, but GTTS, the one converting speech to text, it supports limited languages. For instance, I tried with Swahili, but it's not supported. Those are my thoughts, and that should be it. Thanks for watching.